Okay, hello, hello. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. If you are here, say hi, leave me an emoji, let me know how your week's going, whatever. Just, I love hearing from you all. I love chatting with you all. So let me know you're here. If you watch the replay, let me know as well. I love talking to you guys. That's just how it is. And sometimes with the podcast, I don't always get that. And so this is really nice. I'm super excited about today's topic. We are going to talk about how to feel like a priority in your life and feel like a priority in your marriage specifically. And this is one of the number one, well, I would say top 3 things that people, when they get on these military marriage breakthrough calls with me, that comes out. It's like, I'm just not feeling like I am a priority. And they might not say it exactly like this, but it's just like, I'm so sick of feeling at the mercy of the military, or I feel like my spouse isn't considering, the family when they're making decisions, or, just some version of that. And it all comes back to this. It all comes back to this idea of not feeling like a priority in your life. And look, I think that the military really sets some stuff up against us when it comes to this. Like, you don't ever get to choose where you live. You don't get to choose when you live there. You don't get to choose like who is around you. Even going to Japan, not only did I not choose to live in Japan, but I also didn't choose to live on base. And that's just where I'm told to do that, right? I'm not always getting to decide when my spouse is gone, when they're home, right? I never would have picked for him to go on a deployment. Well, technically they left before he was, the deployment started before we had the baby, but he left like right after I had a baby. I would never do that any other circumstance. So I think that there already are all of these factors that help us feel like we are not a priority, like our needs aren't a priority. And so I think it's just really, really important to ensure that we are that priority, that we get to be a priority in the places that we can be a priority. And even in the places that we feel like we can't, like, how can we be more? How can I have more say? How can I feel like I'm in even more control? So that is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm really, really excited about it. All right. Here's my biggest tip for it, and it's going to be kind of annoying, but stick with me. We'll really talk through it about what it means. But my number one tip for how to feel like more of a priority in your life and in your marriage is to, number one, decide that you are a priority and show up like you are a priority. So let's break those things down. What do I mean by decide you are a priority? Like, I just listed a dozen things that get in the way of us deciding that we're a priority, that really helps us to feel like we are not, important, like we are not in control. We are not in any decision making whatsoever, right? And so with me deciding that I'm going to be like I'll just use myself as an example. I decide that I'm going to be I'm going to decide that I'm a priority in my marriage. I decide that is happening. That is a thing, regardless of what the military does, regardless of any of the military challenges, regardless of what they say or what happens, or even if I feel like I'm getting, information that's different. Like, here's an example. As soon as my husband comes back from deployment, there is going to be another training that would, again, take him away for a chunk of time. And like, I'm really annoyed about it because that's not something that I would choose. And I still know that I am a priority in my marriage. I decide that. And it's weird because it's like, well, but I don't need to decide that. They need to decide that. My spouse needs to decide that. And I don't totally think that that's true. I think that I first have to decide that I am that priority, because how I show up really differs based on my thought process around it, right? If I decide 100% I'm going to be a priority, I'm going to act in that way. Versus if I decide that I'm going to be second place, I act in that way. And this is where that show up like it part comes in. And I'll give a lot more examples, but just to show you kind of one illustration of how this works. So I was talking to somebody and she was saying, like, I just feel like my thoughts and my desires and my dreams are like never being considered by my spouse. I feel like he is making all of these decisions without me. I feel like, nothing. And I asked the question, first, what are your dreams and your decisions and your, like, what would you want to have happen? And second, I said, like, does he know about any of those things? And the answer was, I think so. I don't know, probably not. I mean, this is what I hear time and time again, because if we go in and we're saying the military is number one priority, now we're not inserting any of this stuff because we feel like it doesn't matter. We're not saying, hey, this is my dream for the next 5 years. This is what I'm really hoping will happen. I really want to have as much family time as possible. I really want, right? And without these things, now the military really is making all the decisions. And when I say that, it's like, well, my spouse has some say, but here's the deal, is they are having the military, they're your spouse's leadership, your spouse's like peers, they are having conversations every single day about next steps in their career. About, if you want this, you should go here. If you want a promotion, this is the best thing. You should volunteer for this. You want to do this, right? And in any of those conversations, none of them are talking about you and what you want and what you need and what your family needs and what is best for your marriage. And right, all of those are like, here's the military tracks, and here's the military jobs coming up, and here's the promotion schedule, and here's this, and here's that, and all these things. And you're not considered at all. And so if you want to feel like a priority in your life, you have to decide, I am that priority. And that means that my needs get to be communicated, because that is step one in this of showing is, are you inserting your needs, the things that you need to feel like a priority? So here is an example about this in my marriage. I am always constantly looking at, what do I want? Okay, if I want my spouse to be home, I want to live as close to family as I can. I want to have some flexibility, in whatever we're doing, right? Like, and these are just things kind of off the top of my head. And so now I am sharing these with my spouse. I want you home. So this job that you're talking about and this job you're talking about, I don't like those. That isn't a good path for us. And if I need to be saying that so that they are also thinking about that, again, you have to balance out all of those conversations that they are having in terms of what is best for the military. And they are literally having these every day. And so I need to make sure that when he then is making decisions, that he knows my side. And that is when I start to become a priority. So like examples for this job that we were in, we got to choose between locations, and we got to choose between like types of ships because he's in the Navy. And it's like, well, this location deploys more, this location, right? Like these aren't the ones that I want you to do. And now if it's like, well, but these aren't as good for my job, now you and your spouse are having that conversation versus just, oh, of course I'm picking this one that deploys 500 times because that's what they told me is best, right? Does that make sense? So in our situation, we really do that. Like, what do we want for our family? And I make sure I have these conversations very, very often. One, because I want to balance that out, but two, because life changes and I just want to make sure that my viewpoint and my say is always in there. And then now we again are having those conversations about, well, this is better for the job, so it's going to mean a little bit more time away, but now we are included. And when he's going to fill out that preference sheet, he has me in his ear just as much as he has the military. And that is how I feel like a priority. So now I will say, when it comes to these Japan orders, we did not rank it because I wanted him home, and they deploy a lot. And so in this case now, like, he didn't rank it and it still happened, but now we're dealing with it together. It wasn't like you consciously are making decisions that aren't good for the family. And there'll be times that we disagree, where he really, really wants to do something. I don't want it to happen. And again, now we're having that conversation. But I have decided that I'm going to be more important than the military, that my dreams are more important. And because of that, now I'm going to show up a little differently. The other thing that I hear a lot, and when we don't take ourselves as a priority, is like, how we feel about certain things, like our feelings. And here's a good example where I was talking to one spouse, and she's like, my spouse is coming home and he's really worn out, and he's just, had a really stressful time, and he's, overwhelmed and all of this stuff. And, I don't want to bother him. That was the answer to the question, like, does he know how you feel? Does he know what you want? And it was like, well, I don't want to bother him, or I don't want to add something else to his plate. And I get this one a lot. But now, by not adding to his plate, like, one, he doesn't know how you feel. He doesn't know what's going on. And so, and two, because of that, now you are prioritizing his feelings over yours by you not inserting that. Now, look, I get where it's coming from. It's coming from a really loving place. I don't want to add something else to his plate. And the more you do that, the military will always be stressful. The military will always have something that will, is pressing, that you have to think about, you have to worry about, you have to this, that, and the other thing. And so at some point, you have to be inserting how you feel about this. And the more that you don't, the more that, again, all of those things are happening. And again, you're prioritizing him. And you really want it to be us, right? Now, maybe there's some times that, like, I'm picking up the slack because he's stressed out, but we need that to shift to where he's picking up the slack when I'm stressed out. And so the thing that I need to ensure is that we are allowing us to get back to neutral as often as possible. And so maybe that could, be something small, is like, hey, I know you're really stressed out. I'm really stressed out too. I'd love to talk to you about it. When's a good time to do that? Right? So maybe in that exact moment isn't the time, but now you're going to come up with a time that is, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a minute, right? You don't know exactly what that's going to be, but now you have your place. Now and you have to share. And you can share in a way that's not adding extra, right? Like, think about it. You are probably stressed out, and you're stressed out because your spouse is stressed out. Do you want them to not come to you with their thing? My aunt, probably not. Most people, like, even if I can't actually be there for my spouse, I still want to know. I still want to know you're stressed out. I still want to be and have the opportunity. And they're going to feel the same way. I think the other thing that really helps with this is, like, if I'm just coming to them and being like, I'm really, really miserable, I'm so unhappy, this is really awful, and I'm not helping them to help me, that is when things get overwhelming for them, right? So if I'm just constantly, I'm really upset, I'm really miserable, I'm really sad, and they don't know how to do that, they don't know how to fix that, now they feel guilty, now it is an extra thing. But if I'm going to them and saying, look, I'm really overwhelmed, I'm really sad, this is what this is, and not necessarily this is what I need from you, that is what you're going to do, but like, it is really helpful to me when this happens, or I really would just like to vent to you in this moment, I really don't need you to solve it, I can figure it out, or I really, really need help with, I don't know, laundry this week. Can we find a time that we can do that together? Right. I mean, there's ways to do this, but you have to go that extra bit with like you saying how you're feeling. And then I would give them the what exactly you're wanting from them. Because now, great, you're really sad, I know what to do to make you feel better, now I feel good, I feel good because I made you feel better. And that's how they're going to feel too. Especially, think about it, especially when they're really stressed out at work, you know, they don't have a lot of control, just like we don't have a lot of control about what happens, and now you're essentially giving them the playbook for how to make you feel better. So that is going to be that extra bit there. So number one, make sure they know. Even if you know that that isn't the right time, I would find out when it is. This is also why I really like having scheduled times to talk about this. Like, when can we sit down? Is it a Sunday when, you know, kids are in bed? Is it, you know, when is that we can have some of these conversations? And now they just, you know, we both are going to chat, we're both going to have our stuff inserted. That's another reason why I really like having something like that scheduled on the calendar. For us right now, it's like we send one email a day, and in that email I'm going to say how I feel regardless of how stressed out my spouse is. And now it might just be, again, I'm just, you know, I just want to let you know, and I don't want you to feel guilty, and maybe sometimes I'll even say those little like things, but it's just, you're my person, and that's where this is coming from. You're my person, and you make me feel the best when I'm able to use you for support. Right. I think that, again, we so much come back to being a burden. Here's the other piece of all of this, though. Like I said, if we don't keep saying, because let's be honest, they're not even 100% priority in their life, but it's more so because they're the ones doing it. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, what I say is that if we don't do any of this, if we don't say what we need, if we don't insert our feelings, again, we are subconsciously contributing to this idea that their stuff is more important than ours. Their dreams are more important than ours. Their schedules are more important than ours. Their feelings are more important than ours. And this will continue when you get out of the military too, unless you really start to change it now. Going to say that again. That feeling of you not being a priority will continue when you get out of the military, unless you start to fix this now. And think about that. If you start to feel like a priority in your marriage and in your life while you're in the military, think about how good that's going to feel when you finally get out of the military, right? And so what we don't want to do is, number one, not insert ourselves, but two, contribute to that dynamic. And we constantly want it to be where, look, we are in this very controlling system that is the military, and we can be together in it. That is what you're creating. And so when I'm saying I decide that I am going to show up in this way. I decide that I'm going to do the actions that allow this to happen, which means he knows my dreams. He knows what I want. He knows how I'm feeling. I'm going to say them in a way that he can accept it. He's going to say it in a way that he can support me. He's going to say it in a way that, right? But now if you're doing that, it gets easier for him too. And I remember like we were talking because our next set of orders after Japan, it basically, we are at this like career path. Okay. So you either like stay on the track, you're on like this promotion, things are great, or you kind of go off the path. We can wait till we retire. You know, I want this. I don't want the like deploying all the time. We're deploying a lot and I don't want to do that. Right. And so he wanted to stay on the path and I didn't want to stay on the path. So that doesn't mean that we're going to agree all the time, but we're going to continue to have those conversations until we both decide what feels good. The sooner you start having these, because it's not like as soon as those orders come up, now we're trying to start, right? He already knew that I wouldn't want a really high deploying job after this. He knows that because I'm telling him, because we're talking about it, right? So you don't want to wait to have these until like the very bitter end, if that makes sense. So deciding that you are a priority in your marriage, and it's really a mindset thing. Do not fall into this victim, I can't do anything about our situation. It might feel like that sometimes, but once you give into that, now all these other actions stop and it makes it really, really hard. So deciding that I am a priority, it doesn't matter what the military does, that I am still the most important thing to my spouse, right? Like that is key. This is the mindset piece that sounds so simple, but it's really not, especially when, you know, you're getting things that you don't want. Like I said, I've talked a lot about like the crap that has been thrown our way. I would never choose that, but it doesn't change like, you know, the military is just going to throw stuff at us sometimes, but it doesn't change this. So I'm deciding, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the military throws at me. It doesn't matter if I feel it or not. I'm still showing up every single day as the priority that I know I am in my marriage. And I get that this is easier said than done. Then I need to make sure that my actions reflect that. I need to make sure that I'm inserting my dreams. I'm inserting my needs. I'm inserting that all of these things I am doing because they are just important as all of his needs, right? So I'm doing those things. I'm deciding and mentally I'm showing up as that, and I'm doing it all. I'm talking about what needs to happen. I'm saying, here's what I want to do. It's a really kind of complicated thing, but it's also very simple at the same time, right? And look, I could go into really specific things about talk to your spouse this way, and then you could feel right. And yes, that's great. And we could tweak little things within your own individual marriage. But if you decide and you show up in it, it doesn't matter any of the rest. Like you will still feel better in this life and in your marriage overall. So questions that come up for this, send me a DM, let me know. I really would love to hear just like what thoughts, if you're like, I have no idea what you were even talking about, or I want to decide, I have no idea how to do that, or I want to show up, I have no idea how to do that. My spouse is gone from 4 a.m. and he doesn't get back till 10 p.m. Like, how the heck do I even make this work in this, right? Like, these are where all those little logistics come in. And this was somebody that I was talking to, again, whose husband was going to work out at 4, wasn't getting home from work until 10, and was like, where am I in this? I am not a priority. And it was this, how do we start inserting her more into that situation? But first, she had to decide that she was the priority. She had to decide that it wasn't actually all those other things and that she was last. Because when she accepted that, like, everything else stopped. So we had to get that part on board first, and then those little things that the work schedule might not change, but how she knows that she's in there, she feels it more, and it's such a different situation. So again, if this is confusing or you are like, I have no idea how to do this, reach out, let me know. Y'all know I love hearing from you. If there are topics you want me to cover, let me know, reach out. You can do here, you can be on Instagram. I just am so happy to support you all in any way I can. So I will be seeing you all next week. I think that probably most people are going to be doing some sort of Halloween related stuff this weekend. So I hope that you really enjoy doing that. I have enlisted my entire family in on a costume that includes my parents. And so whether they like it or not, we are all doing it because I am a priority in my own life. And I'm really excited about that. So again, reach out, let me know if this is some of that stuff that like you kind of have to sit with, feel like, try on, take off, and see kind of what comes up from there. But all right, great to see you all. I love doing these. I love talking with you, and we will see you back next Tuesday for another training. Have a good one. Take care of yourself.